Have you ever had one of those mornings where you sit quietly with a cup of tea or coffee, look out the window, and suddenly realize how much life has changed? Maybe you notice how peaceful the house is now. Maybe you think about the years you spent running around, working, raising a family, trying to keep everything together. And now, in this stage of life, everything is quieter, slower, more still. Some people feel lonely in that stillness. Others feel unsure of what comes next. But for me, at 77, something surprising happened. I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a very, very long time. I started to feel free. It wasn't the kind of freedom you feel when you retire and people say, "Congratulations, now you can do whatever you want." No. That's not real freedom. At least, it wasn't for me. When I first retired, I felt lost. All the routines I had built for decades suddenly disappeared. I didn't have a place to be every morning. My phone didn't ring as much. People didn't need me the same way. And instead of feeling free, I felt like I'd stepped into a world where everything familiar had been taken away. Maybe you felt something similar. That strange mix of relief and confusion. That feeling of what now? As the years passed, I carried a lot of thoughts that weighed me down. Thoughts about mistakes I'd made. Things I should have done differently. Memories that still stung a little. Regrets that showed up late at night. And responsibilities, responsibilities, that followed me even though I was done working. I didn't realize how much those invisible loads kept me from really enjoying the years in front of me. But something shifted when I turned 77. I can't explain exactly why it happened then. Maybe it was the way life slowed down even more. Maybe it was seeing friends my age pass away. Maybe it was watching my children and grandchildren grow into their own lives and noticing how little of their world depended on me anymore. Or maybe it was simply time that softened me, humbled me, and finally taught me the lesson I had been missing all my life. True freedom doesn't come from retirement. It doesn't come from money or free time or not having a job anymore. True freedom comes when you stop carrying what isn't yours to carry. Some of us spend decades holding on to expectations that were never meant for us. Expectations from our parents. Expectations from our community. Expectations we placed on ourselves. We spent years trying to meet standards that didn't always match who we truly were. And when we couldn't meet those expectations, because no one can meet all of them, we felt guilty, ashamed, or not good enough. Isn't it strange how long those feelings last? Even at 60, 70, 80, we still remember moments from our younger years as if they happened yesterday. But freedom came to me the day I realized something simple: I don't have to live for anyone else's approval anymore. I don't have to make choices that please everyone around me. I don't have to fix what's broken in other people. I don't have to carry every responsibility on my shoulders. I don't even have to be the strong one all the time. At 77, I realized that I am finally allowed to just be. And maybe you've reached a point where you're starting to feel that too. Or maybe you're still figuring it out. Either way, you deserve to understand this truth: the older you get, the more life invites you to let go. Not to give up, not to stop caring, but to release the things that have weighed you down for far too long. One of the first things I learned was how freeing it is to let go of the need to control everything. When you are younger, you feel like you have to manage every detail: your career, your household, your children, your relationships, your future. You feel responsible for outcomes, even outcomes you can't control. But as you age, you start to realize that life unfolds whether you worry about it or not. People grow in their own ways. Family members make their own decisions, even if you disagree. Situations change with or without your stress. And somewhere along the way, you learn to gently release your grip on everything. Learning to let life flow without fighting it, that brought me more peace than any retirement plan ever could. It allowed me to breathe. To rest. To stop feeling like the world depended on me being perfect. And when that tension finally left my shoulders, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades: lightness. The second thing I discovered was how freeing it is to forgive yourself. This might be the hardest thing for many of us. We're quick to forgive other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we carry our mistakes like wounds that never heal. Maybe you feel that too. Maybe you've spent years thinking about choices you wish you made differently. Words you shouldn't have said. Opportunities you let slip by. People you feel you failed in some way. But here's the truth I want you to hear. You did the best you could with who you were and what you knew at the time. And that has to be enough. You deserve forgiveness too. You deserve to wake up each morning without dragging yesterday behind you. You deserve to move forward lighter, softer, freer. And forgiveness isn't about saying everything was perfect. It's about acknowledging that you're human. You're allowed to have flaws. You're allowed to have moments you're not proud of. You're allowed to grow. When I finally forgave myself, the world around me didn't change, but I did. I felt the freedom to enjoy the life I still had instead of replaying the life I'd already lived. Now that we've opened the door to this idea of letting go and forgiving yourself, there's something deeper waiting to be explored, a kind of freedom that touches every part of your life once you truly understand it. And feel that these insights are meaningful. Please type number 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I warmly invite you to do so, and don't forget to turn on the bell, so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos designed to uplift, inform, and inspire. Your support truly means a lot. It's what keeps us going and allows us to continue sharing thoughtful, helpful content just for you. Now, let's continue this journey together. And as we move deeper into this idea of true freedom, you might start noticing something interesting happening inside you. Maybe you're realizing that the freedom you want isn't about escaping life, but about finally allowing yourself to live it in a way that feels natural, peaceful, and honest. At 77, I've learned that freedom often shows up in the areas we used to ignore because we were too busy, too tired, or too focused on being who everyone else needed us to be. It's like discovering parts of yourself that had been waiting silently for decades, hoping you'd finally give them space. And once you do, it changes your whole world. One of the biggest realizations I had was that freedom begins the moment you stop chasing approval. Oh, I spent many years trying to keep everyone happy. I wanted to avoid conflict. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be the good one. So I kept quiet when I should have spoken up. I said yes when my whole body told me no, and I carried responsibilities that weren't mine to carry. Maybe you've done the same. Maybe you spent years as the glue that held everything together. But that glue dries out eventually. And when it does, you start to understand that the people who love you will still love you even when you stop bending over backward to please them. And the ones who only stayed because you kept sacrificing yourself? Well, maybe losing them is part of becoming free. It took me a long time to understand that I wasn't put on this earth to meet everyone's expectations. I wasn't born to be a perfect parent, a perfect spouse, a perfect friend, or a perfect anything. I was born to be human. To learn. To grow. To make mistakes. To have moments of joy and moments of pain. And when I finally allowed myself to be imperfect without feeling guilty or ashamed, a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. It felt like I could breathe in a deeper way, almost as if my chest had been tight for years and suddenly loosened. Freedom feels like that, like being able to inhale again. And that brings me to something I think many of us don't talk about enough, the freedom to heal old wounds, even the ones we thought were long forgotten. When you get older, people tell you to move on, to let things go, to act like the past no longer exists. But the truth is, you can't rush healing. You can't order your heart to stop hurting just because the calendar says you're 70 or 80. Healing comes when you finally sit with your feelings, acknowledge them, and give yourself permission to release what no longer serves you. For me, it wasn't about fixing the past. It was about understanding it. Understanding why certain things hurt so much. Understanding why some memories stayed with me for decades. Understanding that my younger self did the best she could with the tools she had. And that compassion, that gentle acceptance, is what freedom truly feels like. Another thing that surprised me is how freeing it is to embrace simplicity. When you're young, you want more of everything. more success, more belongings, more excitement, more plans. But as you age, you realize that freedom often hides in the things you remove, not the things you add. Removing clutter from your home. Removing toxic people from your circle. Removing guilt from your heart. Removing pressure from your mind. Removing the belief that you need to constantly prove something to anyone. There is something incredibly peaceful about waking up in a life that feels light, uncluttered, and quiet in the best way. Not empty, just calm. And maybe that's why so many people begin to rediscover joy later in life. Not the loud joy that needs to be shared with the whole world, but the quiet joy that sneaks into your mornings and sits gently by your side. Watching the sunrise with no rush. Drinking your coffee in silence, not because no one is talking to you, but because that silence feels warm. Listening to the birds. Feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. That kind of joy comes from freedom, the freedom to slow down without feeling guilty, to enjoy small things without thinking they are too small, to simply exist without needing to justify your existence. But true freedom also means giving yourself permission to dream again. Yes, even at 77. People assume dreams are for the young, but that's simply not true. If anything, dreams become sweeter as you get older because they come without the pressure. No more deadlines. No more proving something. Just pure curiosity and possibility. Maybe you dream of learning a new hobby, traveling somewhere you've always wanted to go, reconnecting with someone, or even just creating a new routine that makes you feel alive again. The dream doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. And once you start dreaming again, you begin to notice the spark returning. That spark you thought you lost decades ago. That spark that got buried under responsibilities and stress and expectations. That spark that dimmed every time you told yourself, it's too late. It's not too late. If you're still breathing, you're still becoming. And that realization alone is a kind of freedom most people don't experience until later in life. But once you feel it, truly feel it, everything shifts. So as we continue exploring what true freedom feels like, let's begin to move into something deeply meaningful, something that often becomes clearer only with age. It's the part of freedom that has nothing to do with what you do or where you go, and everything to do with who you allow yourself to be. You know, as I look back on the long road it took for me to understand what freedom really means, I've realized something important. True freedom isn't loud. It doesn't burst into your life with fireworks or make big announcements. It arrives softly. It shows up in the smallest moments, the ones we often overlook. It's in the morning when you wake up and realize there's no knot in your chest anymore. It's in the way you no longer rush to please people who barely notice your effort. It's in the way you speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. And slowly, day by day, you start to understand that this version of freedom is the one you've been searching for all your life. One of the most surprising things about reaching this point is how much easier it becomes to say no without guilt. For decades, many of us said yes because we felt we had to. Yes to extra responsibilities. Yes to family demands. Yes to things we didn't even want to do. And each time we did, we lost a little piece of ourselves. But something shifts when you finally understand freedom. You start recognizing that your time is valuable, even if others don't always treat it that way. You begin to see that saying no doesn't make you selfish, it simply means you're choosing yourself too. And after a lifetime of putting others first, there's something incredibly healing about finally giving yourself that permission. There's also a beautiful calm that comes with letting go of regrets. Most people carry regrets like heavy luggage, dragging them through the years, thinking they deserve to hold onto them. Mistakes from decades ago. Words they wish they could take back. Opportunities they didn't grab. But true freedom teaches you that regret is not a punishment, it's a teacher. And once you learn what it came to teach, you can finally set it down. You stop replaying the same old story in your mind. You stop wishing you could go back in time. Instead, you start looking at what's still possible, not what's no longer in reach. At 77, I can tell you with full confidence, the moment you stop living in the rearview mirror is the moment life becomes lighter. Another part of freedom that many people don't expect is how much joy there is in simplifying your life. Not in a boring or minimalistic way, but in a way that brings clarity. You begin to notice how much unnecessary noise used to fill your days. Arguments that didn't matter. Expectations that exhausted you. Relationships you tolerated out of habit instead of love. When all of that begins to fade, what's left are the things that truly matter. Real connections. Hobbies that make your heart warm. Moments of silence that feel peaceful instead of lonely. Even small routines, like making your morning tea or taking slow walks, start to feel meaningful again because you're finally experiencing them fully, without distraction or pressure. And freedom also means accepting yourself with a softness you might not have known in your younger years. When you are young, you spend so much time trying to prove yourself, to the world, to your family, to your job, even to people who don't care. But when you reach this stage of life, you realize something powerful: you don't need to prove anything anymore. You've lived, you've survived, you've learned, and you've earned your place. The wrinkles, the aches, the gray hair, none of it is something to hide or be ashamed of. They're all reminders of the storms you walked through and the strength you didn't always know you had. There's a freedom in embracing this season of life exactly as it is instead of fighting it. One of the most liberating parts of true freedom is no longer needing approval from others. Many people spend their whole lives waiting for someone, anyone, to say they're good enough. But the truth is, approval from others changes like the weather. If you depend on it, you'll never feel steady. Real freedom is when you begin to validate yourself. When you can look at your decisions, your values, your journey, and feel proud. Not because someone else told you to be proud, but because you finally see your own worth clearly. And the moment you stop chasing approval, you'll notice something incredible: your peace becomes harder for others to disturb. Their opinions stop carrying the weight they once did. And you start living in a way that feels honest instead of performative. At 77, I've learned that freedom is often found in the courage to choose joy, even when life hasn't always been easy. Many people believe joy is something that comes from big achievements or big events. But the truth is, joy is a choice you make, one small moment at a time. It's choosing to laugh even when you feel tired. It's choosing to sit in the sun for 5 minutes because it warms your spirit. It's choosing to call someone you love just to hear their voice. It's choosing to forgive, not because the person deserves it, but because you deserve the peace that follows. These little choices add up, and before you know it, they shape the way you feel each day. And maybe that's what freedom truly is: having the wisdom to choose what lifts you up instead of what weighs you down. After so many years of carrying expectations, responsibilities, disappointments, and fears, there comes a moment when you realize you don't have to hold on to them anymore. You can set them down. You can breathe. You can live in a way that feels lighter, calmer, and more meaningful. So, as we wrap up this conversation today, I want to remind you of something important: it is never too late to feel free. It doesn't matter if you're 60, 70, 80, or beyond. Your story isn't finished. There are still new experiences ahead of you, new joy waiting for you, new peace ready to enter your life. You deserve all of it. And you have the power to choose it, starting right now. If anything in this video resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing your stories, your reflections, and your journeys. It reminds us all that we're never alone in what we feel. And if you found this message helpful or comforting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more conversations like this. There's still so much to talk about, and I'd love to keep walking this path with you. Here's to living with clarity, peace, and true freedom at any age and every season of life.